All right, so a lot of you have been asking me about what I think of what's going on in Afghanistan right now, and I understand. Um, so, as promised, I'm just going to make this and I'll just try to talk through them because it's too much to write, too much to type. I don't have a platform to type it out or write it out or anything like that. So, I'm just going to talk through it. Uh, I have a lot of thoughts, none of them are positive. I'm not happy about it. Uh, I'm grieved over it. I'm angry over it. I'm frustrated by it. Um, and just, I guess before I get into it, yeah, I spent some time over there. Spent 7 months over there a couple years ago. I'm not going to sit there and appeal to that as being like, oh, I know everything there is to know about foreign policy because, I deployed once. Yeah, I don't know everything there is to know. Okay, there's foreign policy in general is a complex thing, and by nature, there's just a lot of stuff that we don't know, including people who have been over there. In addition to that, there are people who have been over there and done more than I ever did over there, who have different opinions than I do about it, and there's people who have been over there and done a lot more than I've done over there who will agree with everything I'm about to say. So, yeah, I'm not one to sit there and say that, oh, you have to experience something to understand it. I'm not one to say that you have to experience something in order to have a valid or rational opinion about it. That's bullcrap. I don't believe that at all. Um, and just because you have experienced something doesn't mean you interpret your own experiences in a rational way either. So don't sit there and put me on some kind of pedestal as oh, well, he spent some time over there, therefore he must be infallibly correct on this issue or anything like that. Just get that out of the way first. And then secondly, um, you know, I'll try to watch my language in this. I can't make any promises, to be honest. Once I start thinking about it and start talking about it, I might get a little worked up. I'll try not to, but sorry in advance if I don't. So, with that, I guess the thing that makes me the most angry, and the thing that I think is the worst part of this whole scenario is we left in such a way as to screw over all of the Afghan civilians who worked with us and invested in us being there. That is the part that has me just furious. There are thousands of not even Afghan soldiers, not even people in the Afghan National Army, or in their security force or their police or whatever, not even them. I'm just talking about civilians who are they're just like us, trying to live their lives as best as possible, provide for themselves and their families, and just doing whatever it takes for them to survive and just have the best life that they can in their situation. Those are people that I was around. I wasn't out in the cities, I wasn't out on patrols, I wasn't out interacting with the public, but we did have Afghan civilians who worked on our base. My entire job over there was doing security escorts for them, and they're just normal people. They care about the same things we care about, you know, and they are they are going to die. All of them. Anyone who doesn't die from the Taliban seeking them out will survive because they escaped the country. And we did not provide a way for them to get out before we got out. And that's just not right. That's that's crazy. That's just, I don't have words to describe how angry that makes me. Um, and and I really feel for the guys. I wasn't out there running combat missions or anything like that. I really feel for the guys who were over there and running combat missions with Afghan soldiers whose families are now in harm's way. You know, those guys are way angrier than I am. I know that for a fact. I can only get so angry about it, and I'm pretty mad. This is about as mad as I get over political issues. I know I have a lot of opinions, and I express them directly and all that, but I very rarely get like angry over political stuff, because this kind of thing transcends politics. Like, I'm not even going to try to make this a partisan issue and try to like blame Joe Biden, or talk about like, okay, well, what's the relationship between that and what Donald Trump was trying to do, and before him Obama, and before him Bush. Like, I don't really want to get, I have opinions on that, but that's not what this is about. For me right now, it's about, the people that we left behind unnecessarily. We did not have to leave them behind. Um, you know, it's just mind boggling to me how, even if you're going to leave, if you're going to do this withdrawal, to do so in a way to just hang out to dry everyone who's worked with you and invested in you being there, knowing that the Taliban is going to come after them, and just subjecting them to that, knowing it's going to happen, is just indefensible to me. There's nothing more for me to say about it. Um, it's just crazy. So that's what's got me like really fired up over it. And that's not the only thing that's got me fired up about it, but that's the big one. I will say there is the element of it of, thinking about the lives that we lost over there over the last 20 years. And it's hard not to see that as being in vain. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, I think. But there is that element too. A lot of people are mad about that, including myself. Like, I kind of feel that way myself. And that's tough. But what's also really frustrating me is the way this is being framed by a lot of people. So there's the idea out there that we have to leave eventually, right? Like, there's never a good time to leave. Like, I think Biden even said this today in his remarks. It's like, there's never a good time to leave. There was never going to be a good time for us to leave. And this idea that this was the inevitable result whenever we left. So whether we had been there 20 more years or we left today, the result was going to be the same. I don't personally buy that. But even if you buy that, even if you believe that, that doesn't mean that you have to draw down in the way that we did. That doesn't mean that that this is okay, And I can't just buy into that line of thinking either, because we're still in Japan. We still have thousands of troops in Germany, in Italy, in South Korea, and we've been there for way longer than we've been in Afghanistan. And the way it gets talked about is, people talk about it like we're just in active conflict or active combat all the time in Afghanistan. That's not true. Okay, and we haven't been for a while now. When I was over there, like, I was part of an infantry unit. Okay, like, now granted, National Guard, we're not necessarily supposed to be like frontline, but I mean, it ends up being that way sometimes. Like, when I was over there, we didn't even leave the wire. I sat there and did security escorts all the time, right? I got really good at ping pong, and I got in pretty good shape. That was all we did. There was one battalion of our unit, the 48th Brigade, that was out running combat missions with some special forces guys. But the scale of conflict that we were engaged in over there over the last several years, really since, I guess, 2014, it's not like the conventional army was out there, going town to town, engaging in close quarters combat with hordes of Taliban soldiers like it was from 2001 through like 2012. That's not what was going on. Okay, we were there providing support for the Afghan army in their fight against the Taliban, and that was being successful. The Taliban was relegated to, pushed underground. They were hiding in mountains. They were hiding in Pakistan. Wherever. They weren't ruling Afghanistan, terrorizing the population. For 20 years, they were not doing that. So the idea that we were over there, like, in a forever war or whatever, is like, were there combat operations going on at the special forces level? Yes. Is that the same thing as, this full scale conflict like it was from 2001 to 2012? No. And so to argue, we had I believe we had like 4,000 troops over there when I was there, like for the last couple of years in the whole country. And a lot of those were stationed at Bagram, which Bagram was a gigantic Air Force base that we used to basically fly in and fly out of the country. And that was kind of our central operations in the country. It was close to Kabul. There was nothing unsustainable about that. Okay, there's nothing unsustainable for us. We're the largest, most robust military in the world, backed by one of the largest and most robust economies in the world. There was nothing unsustainable about 4,000 troops, advising and assisting and providing air support for the Afghan army. There's nothing unsustainable about that. There was no imminent, urgent need to get out. Okay? That's just, anyone who says otherwise is just blowing smoke out their ass. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not true. So the idea that we had to leave eventually is, I don't even buy that. And even more so that we had to leave right now. That's definitely not true. Okay? So that point is just, I'm kind of tired of hearing that. Another thing that's really kind of irritating me a lot is when people say, like, oh, well, we shouldn't have been there in the first place or whatever, or they try to conflate it with what was going on in Iraq or something. And this is typically from the non-interventionist types, the libertarian types, who libertarians on the left and right, the anti-war left, the anti-war right, the Rand Pauls of the world, as well as the Bernie Sanders of the world, like they're kind of on the same side on this issue. Is kind of conflate it with like, oh, well, what goes on in the Middle East is either none of our business, or we were over there under a false pretense anyway, or they have and they shoehorn in their opinions about what went on in Iraq as if that's the same thing as what's going on in Afghanistan. And it's like, for me, that's just irrelevant. Like, even if you agree with that, even if you think that we shouldn't have ever gone in the first place, which I don't know how you can look at 9/11 and say that we had no business being in Afghanistan. If you want to argue about Iraq, that's fine, whatever. It's a different discussion for a different day. And keep that separate. There's a separate thing. But even if you agree with that, that still doesn't justify the way that we left. Even if you think that we should have left, that still doesn't justify the way that we left. There's two different issues. And it's just, once you're there, once you've made it your business, which we did, like, you can't sit there and say it's none of our business after we've made it our business for 20 years. Okay, or if you want to go back to like the Cold War era stuff, we've definitely made it our business. Whether you think we should have or not, whether you think we were justified in that or not, whether you think that was smart or not, doesn't change the fact that it is what it is, and it's been our business. You can't just suddenly make it not your business anymore. It's not how it works. It's stupid. And if that's the level at which you think, you shouldn't be in charge of making decisions. You just shouldn't. At least not important ones like that. That's crazy. So that's another point that is just, I'm tired of hearing it brought up in this context of, oh, we shouldn't have been there. Therefore, I support the decision to do what we've done over the past few months. It's like, no, and even if you're a straight up non-interventionist and you don't think we should ever be involved militarily or otherwise in the Middle East at all, fine, whatever. You can be wrong in that if you want to. That's cool. But the fact is that the fact is that we are involved. You have to see it through. You have to, if you're going to withdraw, you have to withdraw in a way that doesn't, A, undo everything that you've done over there for the good, and B, that doesn't make the situation worse. Like, it's just not acceptable. I don't see how any American can be okay with it. Even if you're supporting, even if you're one of the ones who supports getting out, and thinking that we did need to get out, like, you still shouldn't be okay with what's going on. You still shouldn't be okay with how it was done. It's, it's just crazy to me. Um, that's I've had a lot of thoughts in my head, and there's a lot more that I could say about all of that. But if I keep going, this is going to turn into an hour-long video. I'm going to try to keep this short. We're already over 15 minutes. So I guess I failed in keeping it short, but there's a lot here. I don't know what else to say about it. What I will say, there's one more really annoying point that keeps getting made and it's back on the idea of, like, should we be over there at all in the first place? Should we have been over there at all in the first place? Is people say, like, oh, America, like, Western involvement, not even just America, but Western involvement in Middle Eastern conflicts creates, it creates terrorists. It creates more terrorists. It perpetuates the problem. You know what else creates terrorists? When the Taliban sweeps through Afghanistan and plucks 14-year-old boys off the street and be like, hey, guess what? You're with us now, and if you're not with us, we're going to kill you and we're going to kill your family. That also creates terrorists. Terrorist organizations create terrorists. So, I really hate shallow, like, stupid level thinking, and that's what I'm hearing a lot of, and it pisses me off. Sorry. So, I will say that the one thing that makes me happy is to think about is there is a whole generation of Afghans now, like the youngest generation, so like 20, 25-year-olds ish, who did not grow up under Taliban rule. They grew up under, not ideal circumstances. I'm not going to sit there and say, they still experienced living in a war zone, where there's collateral damage, where there's, fear, there's car bombings, there's all sorts of stuff going on, but it's not Taliban rule. There's a reason why, if you want to know who the bad guy is and who the good guy is, look at the helpless or the unarmed civilians, look who they're running from, and look who they're running to. That's all there is to it. They're running from the Taliban and they're running to us, and we're not even helping them. So that's crazy. Crazy and wrong. So the last thing is, if I don't know how you can sit there and remember 9/11 and sit there and say that we had no business being over there. Like, the reason we were there is because of 9/11. And I know 9/11 was almost 20 years ago, right? That doesn't make it any less true. Okay, the reason we were in Afghanistan was because of 9/11 and to try to make sure that that did not happen again. The Taliban was giving safe haven to Al-Qaeda, who is the one who carried that out, and that woke us up to, hey, this is a problem. The West is not safe from the activities of these organizations, and we cannot have governments giving organizations like that safe haven or support in those endeavors. And the question used to be, where were you when 9/11 took place? What I'm afraid of, and what I pray is not, is the question is now, where will you be the next time? And if that's the case, then we have a failure of leadership.